committee meeting to order, please. The first one up is public safety, Mr. Zoni.
Public defender.
I'm sorry, public defender. He's here, I saw him.
He was on the phone out calling.
Let's skip to the next one and then we'll come back.
Yeah, make him wait.
That was the last. Moving to the end.
Probation?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First up, asking for authorization to renew our contract for 3 years with Thomson Reuters for computer software called Clear. Allows us to track down people that may have absconded or victims or folks that owe some money. The amount's budget.
I'll move it.
Second?
I'm sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
And secondly, asking for the authorization to enter into a contract with MHA for them to hire 2 part-time family engagement specialists. And this is covered under will be reimbursed by the Rural Practices Grant.
I'll move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
That's it.
Any questions? Mr. Doro? Thank you.
Thanks.
Is that a new program or has that been going on for a while? with them?
This is new. Yep.
Great.
Public defender? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Just have monthly reports for the month of October 2022. In the month of October, we had 110 new applications, closed out 109 cases, and we have a current active caseload of 1,300 cases. In regards to the council at first arraignments, we had 19 arraignments done by after-hour attorneys. And my staff and I conducted 85 arraignments during business hours. And that is all that I have to report for this month. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions for Mr. Zoni?
Okay. Thank you very much, and happy holidays to everyone.
Same to you.
See you again.
Well, thank you.
Sheriff?
Evening, everyone. 2 requests tonight. The first would be authorization to fill a budgeted full-time position for deputy sheriff. This is based on a resignation from one of our.
I'll move it. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Thank you. Second is to fill a vacant budgeted position for full-time cook. That individual has moved over to corrections officer position.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
The Ada County inmate report, there's a slight adjustment. We have received $1,980 from Franklin County, $11,550 from Greene County. U.S. Marshals Service, $8,370, totaling $21,900 for the month of October. Year to date, $124,515, compared to last year's total of $22,640.
And the numbers you read is a little different from what last year.
Correct. Yeah, this is the adjusted report. This is the accurate one.
Okay.
So I do apologize about that. There was a slight difference.
And what numbers do they reflect? In other words, how many you make about?
For the month, it varies. So this month, I couldn't give you the exact number, but it's $90 per day from Greene County, about the same from Franklin County, and then slightly higher for the U.S. Marshal Service.
So
But
what's the population in jail right now?
today's
County versus out of county?
today's count, I believe, is 44. I believe we still have 9 from Greene County. I believe it's 2 for the U.S. Marshals, and The Franklin County, update, I'll have to get back to you. I can get that to you tomorrow if you want Supervisor. The accurate count.
Is Green County still female incarcerated
That's correct.
individuals? And do we know when they're gonna be back up and running with that capacity?
We don't. We have no idea. But
Great.
I can question for you if you want, Supervisor, but
Yeah,
as long as you keep sending it to us, we're not determining.
Would you keep paying us for 12 months?
Well, we've done a deep dive, but the amount that we're charging at least covers our costs, if not more. We're not spending our money to offer this program.
Correct. It's, we're definitely, taking in more money than we're spending on a daily basis. So I can get that. And it's asking for a breakdown. We're working on that. So.
Any questions for the sheriff?
I have a question.
Sure.
I thought there was an article in the paper about a lawsuit around local law enforcement and didn't specifically say Columbia County. But I wasn't sure if you can talk about that or if you have any comment about it.
I don't know which article you're talking about.
Okay, so it's, it was in the Register Star. I guess, is there a lawsuit against Columbia, against the Sheriff's Department? I know it mentions like Hudson Police Department.
Not to my knowledge, but, it'd be a question for the county attorney's office to answer. And I can't speak on it. If there's a previous lawsuit, that I'm unaware of, or there's been something that's been put out today, but I don't know about the article. I can look into it, supervise committees, and, if you want to just give me a call tomorrow, I can give you more good
It
answer.
sounded like it was filed last week or.
Not to my knowledge.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
911?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
I have a resolution to request to award our microwave maintenance to RS Telecom for the sum of $44,000 per year, and it's a 3-year term. And this was a result of a bid that was put out. It is budgeted for this year as well as placed in the budget for next year.
Motion?
I'll move it. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? So carried.
I have a request for Veritiv Corporation to service our UPS, which is the battery operated system in the public safety building for our wing that actually fronts the electrical load. So we don't, on a power surge, we don't drop our computers. Last time it was serviced was about 2015. So what we'd like to do is replace the batteries and any updates that are required for a sum of $12,260.39. It is a budgeted item. Again, it fronts all of our equipment in public safety.
I'll move it. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Request to purchase a replacement computer-aided dispatch system, which is CAD. I figured let me give you a little background. So last week we received a letter from our current CAD company that actually indicates that they're going to retire our system and gave it an end of life of November of 2023, which is pretty short notice. It's just about less than a year. Takes a little bit of time to stand up a whole CAD system. There's so much that goes into programming it and setting it up. We had budgeted a replacement CAD because typically CAD systems go for about 5 years between the hardware and software. They need to be refreshed. We actually put the last purchase order in for the last system in 2013. So we certainly got our life out of it. So again, what we'd like to do is replace a replacement CAD system from Tyler Technologies for an amount not to exceed $650,000. Also to include annual maintenance, which I've included to be paid annually. That's not included in that $650,000. This replaces our current CAD system, and we will be using the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds. Purchase will be made through Sourcewell contract.
So the $650, the cost that you're looking at now is the ARPA, the ongoing maintenance, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is there already a budget line that you have for this type
Yeah.
of maintenance? So it's not really a budget change.
not on the
Then
yearly
that's
maintenance.
$650.
Yeah, I mean, we currently pay 47,000 and change for annual maintenance for that.
Okay,
So that's actually coming in under budget.
okay.
And the 650 has been approved by the ARPA committee.
Yes.
Draft it out.
We actually had more put aside for that. And we talked about taking what the excess and using it for the, review of the fire companies, which George is working on. So George can talk about that.
Okay.
I'll move it.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Our call volume for the month of October was 4,239 incoming calls. We dispatched 1,429 EMS agencies, 428 fire agencies, 1,823 police polls, and 570 public service calls. That's all I have.
Any questions, Mr. Lopez? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Emergency management?
Good afternoon, Chairman and everybody. We have our activity and one resolution. The resolution is authorizing the Chairman of the Board and the Emergency Management to develop a domestic terrorism prevention plan, and after review and approval by the Public Safety Committee, submit the plan to the New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services by December 31st of 2022 as required by the New York State Executive Order 18-2022. There's been a development group that we put together that put this plan together. It's a basic plan that follows the guidance provided by New York State. Supervisor Metler has been actively involved in putting it together. It does include us developing a TAM, which is a Threat Assessment and Management Team. And we wanted to leave, even though it's, I think, 12 pages long, we wanted to leave the plan that we're going to submit to the state basic, so that as we develop the TAM, which is not officially required, the plan is required by New York State, the TAM is not. However, they strongly encourage, and they attach money and grant funding that we have applied for. Rob applied for it during the 2-week window in early September. That it helps us develop a TAM, and the group thought it would be a good idea to develop a county TAM. And so that's how we're proceeding.
Can you remind me what TAM stands for? You said?
Threat Assessment and Management Team.
Okay, who would be on that team?
In the plan, you know, there's a list of agencies that we ask that develop a plan that we ask to transition over.
Oh, right.
And it's, you know, mental health agencies, Department of Health, the Sheriff's Office, the State Police, all the law enforcement agencies, County Attorney's Office, District Attorney's Office, Social Services, Probation, the Mental Health Department, MIS, Fire Coordinator, EMS Coordinators, 911, New York State, dishes, Hudson Police, Questar, you know, any agency, and it doesn't have to be a public agency. It can be a not-profit or a for-profit, a private agency. And what basically the Threat Assessment and Management Team is not an enforcement tool. It will be to assess any domestic terrorism threats that are made, so that basically so that we can provide public education and support. Or if it happens, you know, if there's a situation within a business, a large business or whatever, you know, we can give them advice on security and informing their employees. If you know, to go into detailed discussion, I had asked for an executive session, although the plan, I don't think really, you know, actually Supervisor Metler had suggested that during the meeting, but the plan as it stands now really isn't, you know, I'm not that concerned with going forward. We're gonna have more information that we receive from the New York State Information Center. And, you know, typically, we're not allowed to give that information out as we receive it, so. But I think you were provided with the plan, right? So, you know, if anybody has any other questions,
So this would have to be approved tonight, correct?
this would have to be
Are we
approved.
gonna have committee meetings in December?
Yeah, this would have to be approved tonight. I think it went out last week, with the order from the governor, the guidance that we were given from New York State, the resolution and the entire plan. So everybody could review it. And, you know, we're asking that we were able to submit it after approval by the, Public Safety Committee and not have to go through the whole board. As you'll see in the order, the chairman of the board, supervisor of the county executive is the person responsible for assigning the lead agency and organizing the whole thing, has the ultimate responsibility to make sure it happens. So chairman has to be involved in that as well.
So are there questions in regards to the plan that's been put forth?
I have a
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
First, I'll just share my appreciation for putting the plan together. I think it reads well. It's coherent, and I think it is a really good step forward. And I know that you want to be vague, so maybe this is intentionally not in the plan, but I'm curious about what, if any, we're doing to proactively find signs of people sort of signaling that they might be committing domestic terrorism. A lot of the incidents in the past couple of years, people have posted on social media either during or right beforehand, or a series of posts ahead of time. Is that something that we expect like the state police to do, or like what are we doing or could we be doing in the next few years?
All and above. There are some programs out there that allow you to monitor social media. That's one of the reasons why we included MIS, and the New York State Information Center absolutely can do that, or they can provide us with resources to do that. But that's certainly one of the things that the TAM will consider. And, you know, we intentionally don't want to put too much of a band around their thinking. You know, we want them to come out. We certainly have had domestic terrorism activity in the county. We had what would be considered domestic terrorism activity a few months ago in Chatham. And during the same weekend, you know, there was similar activity in another county nearby. And we've had some arrests for hate crimes in the past. I wouldn't say many, but although, you know, the information is only provided up to 2020, I think, to 2021. So there's always a backlog. But yeah, certainly, we don't want to tie them down with what they can be involved in, and we'll certainly accept any members from local government. You know, we have to only one person be assigned if that's what you want to do, but it's again, it's not an enforcement tool, but law enforcement is involved. They'll be able to get more intelligence on than we would be able to get as civilians. And you know, there's going to be good discussions. I'm working with the county attorney's office now to come up with a memorandum of understanding that includes a confidentiality clause, so that everybody can speak freely. And then, you know, the state provides resources. There's free training out there for TAM members and for the general public that can use. I mean, there's a lot that seems out there that we can actually use. I think it'll be good going forward. I think it's a good thing.
I would speak in support of the plan. I'm involved with it. The plan itself is pretty generic, right? And purposely so. There were some concerns that I had that maybe we should be more specific and proactive. And I discussed it with the director and agreed with him that at this stage, it should be generic. I think in reference to, or in answer to Michael's question, one of the things that we've talked about is just the educational aspect of this, to get people in the county to recognize that there are issues out there so that they can, you know, if they see someone who's a neighbor, is he just a little odd or is he a little dangerous? And so, you know, that's the kind of, I mean, I was quite, alarmed, when in the first meeting, I said to the director, well, what are you seeing here in Columbia County? And he listed off various instances. So I think this is a good first step. And then there'll be more specific steps going forward.
Yeah, and the plan says that the TAM will update the plan as they go forward, and they'll create their own procedures and protocols.
So, as far as the TAM, you listed a bunch of organizations. Who decides the individual people? Is that something the chairman appoints? Is that something
That's the lead
planning
agency?
Probation gets to choose who their representative
Right,
is,
right.
your organization, and it could change based
Right.
on.
Exactly.
And it's a pretty
you know,
open membership, right? In other words, if there's some even business that we
Yes.
haven't thought of, and then they come and they say, this is a concern for us, and we want to be involved.
Yeah.
I think,
you know, I don't see, there has to be a lead agency, and the chairman assigned emergency management as the lead agency. We've been working closely with the sheriff's office on it. And, you know, I don't see where we would restrict anybody from coming unless you're a domestic terrorist. Or, you know, but, you know, if that decision was made not to allow a company or an organization in, it would be made by the group, not by one.
And is it just like, is it monthly meetings, or is it just when we have an incident, we gather?
Both.
Both.
My vision is potentially at least 4 times a year with meetings in between as things happen. But those 4 meetings, we can probably work through what training we want to, and public outreach we want to put out. Rob had a good idea about possibly an app, you know, which would be funded by the grant, possibly. We're still, you know, this all came out so quick that even the grant people from New York State that put it out are still looking at how this is going to be done. We haven't even been, it's guaranteed funding, but we haven't been notified that we're approved yet. We're still going through that.
And the app would be for like the public to report a hate crime or something they saw.
Yes, there's some ways that they can report it now. If we could come up with better ways, you know, confidentiality is a big thing. People don't want their name used. And there are ways that they can do that now. But we could certainly give them more information on what to look for, how to report it, how to be confidential. What happens if you report something and it's kept confidential? You know, is it still follow through on, you know, we have to report it to law enforcement or make sure it's reported to law enforcement. But if it's confidential, it's confidential. To whoever reports it. But I think it's a good start, and I think it's going to be good for the county. And all the schools too have participated. You know, it goes hand in hand with what's going on in schools, and schools are actually a little ahead of the game when it comes to these type of things, and you know, assessing threats and what they do with them. But this will put it on a larger scale, countywide.
Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a second.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Thank you all for your hard work on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fire? Everyone.
Hello.
So I just had a resolution request to increase our vehicle repair budget by the amount of an insurance check for the result of a car deer accident with one of our vehicles.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Thank you. And then our activity report's pretty self-explanatory. And we are up a little bit on our fire-related responses. The special teams seem to be averaging right out about where they should be. And our training facility is gonna end up the year somewhere around 5,000 hours of classroom training and just shy of, well, we'll be a little over 1,200 hours of training hours for the tower and props. The only other thing I got at the study we talked about, we did have a fire advisory board meeting, and a subcommittee on the fire advisory board meeting looked over the scope of the work, and that committee is consisted of the chairman of the committee, a past chief and an active chief, and they looked over the scope, and they were all in agreement with the scope of the work, and just wanted to make sure how we were going to be able to use that information going forward. So that's going to come up in our conversations with the company if we go forward.
So the scope of the work as presented by them
Yes.
is exactly how you'd like to see that?
Yep.
Okay. So then the next discussion would be with the company. Correct. You could ask those questions.
Yep.
Right, so we'll have to get that together after
Yep.
the holidays.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Terrific. Any other questions for fire?
Well, I have a question.
We have it here.
George, can you tell me off the top of your head, in rough numbers, how are those classroom training hours in relation to before we had this facility? What did we used to do years ago?
Well, we were at the firehouses with the classes.
Right.
I think the training, the number of classes is pretty consistent with what we've been doing in the past.
Okay.
This next year, we've ramped up a few more. We did have we started in the middle of the pandemic, so classes were cut short.
Right.
We didn't have as many classes.
And during that time,
But I think the difference is we're making more use of the training tower and the props in the classrooms because it's more convenient, and they're using that stuff more during the classes than they would if they're at the firehouse.
that's what I would.
Any other questions for George?
Yeah, George, with the cost of fuel as it is there an increased concern for, fire hazards with people using supplemental heaters and stuff like that? And is there any way that we can?
All the time. But
Yeah, I know. I mean, is there any way we can get, I don't know if we can get any more education out there?
we can try, we get some stuff put out by FASNY and NFPA that hits the local papers, so we're trying not to speed it up too bad, but yeah, we can try to issue some
Yeah,
more
just,
stuff
you know,
over the winter too.
I know my fuel bill's
Yeah.
through the roof, and
Yeah,
you're going to get a lot more of that. People plugging in electric heaters
Yep.
and whatever else. So just
sure.
Something, I don't know if I brought this up, but I did go to, one of the meetings over there. Was it last month?
Yep.
And what I learned was that some of these solar farms that are going into townships, that the fire companies are not well versed in putting fires out within those solar farms. Some of these companies that are coming into the towns are not offering training to local fire companies. And when they ask these companies, and they're all different companies, what do you want us to do if there's a fire in a solar farm? And please correct me if I'm saying anything wrong, but their response was anything within the fence, let it burn. If it comes out of the fence, then take care of it.
Yep.
Which is concerning to me because some of this is toxic. So just as a thought to towns, when they're approving these or not approving these, I know the state has the authority, but something that should be at least presented and making sure that at least if there's one in your town, that your local fire company has some sort of training as to what happens if there is a fire.
We've been working with them. We're going to try and do something at the training facility as well, but the solar company's position is that they're considered a utility. That's how they're getting their funding. So they're considered a utility. We don't do any utility firefighting in a substation or anything like that, so it's considered the same thing. The downside to this is there are a lot more hazardous materials, and we're trying to get some safety data sheets from all these manufacturers on these different panels so that we can at least educate the fire departments on how far we should be evacuating houses, if there's houses close to them, depending on the level of fire and all that stuff. So, I mean, there is some stuff we're doing, but really as a utility, we're not going to go into inside the fenced enclosure to try to put the fire out because the damage is already done if the fire is started. So we're not really concerned in jeopardizing anybody's life or equipment to put out a utility fire when they're just going to come tear it out and put a new one in anyways. But our concern going forward is the smoke and the fumes and and such from the burning, the active burning, as to how far we need to evacuate, whether we shelter in houses or whether we move people to a different location. So that's some of the stuff we're wrestling with now, because they are becoming a lot more prevalent, as you can see going down the road, and there's a lot of them out there. So we did have a fire in West Kent a few months ago that was contained to one transformer pad. And again, we did get some of that smoke from that filtered into the nursing home next door. So it's a real thing. So that's why we're trying to keep on top of it.
Rob, thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, I thought it was, most people would know, so.
Yeah, and
I-
the person who's, can pull the switch on it and is maintaining it will probably be like, you know, the solar field would be in Craryville and the guy
It's in
who's in charge is
Arizona.
in Clark.
Yeah.
Well, right now, the closest guy is an hour and a half away that we know of, and the ones that are active right now. And this doesn't include, none of the facilities in Columbia County right now have any battery storage, any lithium storage capabilities. That's a whole nother level of craziness if that starts.
I
So,
think it should be, you know, discussed with your planning boards so that, you know, in some of these, that's one of the questions that comes up.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that towns.
We wish it would be discussed with our planning board.
Well, I'm just, you do what you want with the information, but I think it's important, so.
Well, and even on some of these smaller applications
Correct,
on
yeah.
homes that don't go through the planning board, and I only speak from experience because my husband's the fire chief in New Lebanon. He had to go out and sign off on it.
Mhm.
And they said, oh, we don't need an external on-off switch. And he said, then I'm not signing off on it because I'm not sending my guys in. But it didn't meet some threshold that according to the state,
right,
but he had the authority to say, well, no, then,
right.
you know, we're not gonna, I mean, we'll respond and stand out here, but if you don't give us that external switch, and they did. So I think it's important for fire companies and fire chiefs too, to know that they do have some discretion there.
And there needs to be interaction between the fire departments and
And the
code
CBO,
enforcement.
exactly.
And the planning board.
So in our town, the CEO calls in the fire chief
Yep.
and they inspect together. And in this instance, my husband wasn't comfortable. And even though it wasn't required by code for him to sign off, it needed to have an external switch. to
Any way you can get it.
keep The fire company safe,
Yeah.
so.
Yep, that's good.
Thank you, George. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Text from.
Yeah, sure. I think that's all we have. So is there any other questions from any of the committee? Because that's the last department we have to. We don't have anything for the DA, correct? Kelly?
Mr. DA, did you have anything to report or?
No, thanks.
So is there any questions or from the committee?
So Kelly, I got a text from Supervisor Cousin that she posted a question in the chat, but I didn't see it here. So she said it's in the YouTube chat. I don't know if you have access to the YouTube
She needs
chat.
to email it in.
What's the question?
Cameron, can you see a YouTube chat question? Can you read it, please? Thank you.
Mr. Sheriff, she said it's a question for you, so just so you're listening.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I would ask that Supervisor Cousins contacts us directly. We can have a sit down and explain exactly what's going on. There are some challenges that we are facing with the MAP program. I think it is benefiting the incarcerated, but we're also seeing some challenges and some potential problems. So it's a pretty long-winded, explanation unless you have some specific question on that. I would just request that you just contact us directly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee?
I have a question on that. I'd love to hear the answer to that too. So is it more that this is not a public discussion and maybe we go into an executive session and discuss it? Because I mean, Supervisor Cousins could contact you and have an hour-long conversation, then I could contact you and have an hour-long conversation, then Supervisor Ligonia could contact you. So if there is an update or challenges, I'd actually love to hear
I
it
would, I
too.
would say that it's contractual in nature. Something that,
So executive session.
would you agree with that, Sheriff?
I would, the MAP program is, pretty broad. There's a lot of things that it encompasses. So I'm not sure exactly what the question is entailing.
Would,
I guess the pros and the cons at this point, I know it's early on, but obviously you said you had some challenges and some positives, but if it's something that the committee wants to go into executive session and have just a brief, and then we could pass that on to Supervisor Cousins, because that would be shut off, correct? Kelly?
Right.
Yeah.
or I wonder, just to throw another option out there, because you're not prepared necessarily, what if at next public safety meeting, unless there's something urgent at next public safety meeting, you could
Well,
come
that wouldn't be
prepared.
because we don't have one. in
Oh, we don't
December.
have one in December.
So I would just assume we have a few minutes if you want to
Okay.
do it for 10 minutes. Well, before we do that, are there any other
Kelly, can you
questions from
send
the
Supervisor
committee?
Cousins the link to get into this one?
Are there any questions from the public?
She can't get into this
No.
one, even as a supervisor.
Right, right.
Are there any questions from the
You
public?
have to be here or you can put on speakerphone with your phone.
Okay, so then I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss a contractual issue, but I'd have to ask everybody to leave, please.
I'll move that.
Second, I think we got you. All in favor?
Aye.
Questions? Everybody back in. Everybody left.
Any other
Motion to
questions?
adjourn.
Any other questions? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. So
County government meeting.
We did one
First
other
up, County clerk, Holly.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, acting deputy chairman, whatever your title is. So I submitted a resolution for ARPA. So I went to the subcommittee for $285,000 for digitation and scanning of historical records in the records room, which under ARPA funding requirements falls into the category of Public Health 1.4 as a qualifying project. So this is going to improve online access, as I was just explaining to Supervisor Chimides. You know, the ultimate goal is to allow people to sit at home from the comfort of their own home and access these documents, which are historical in nature, without having to come into an office, which is part of the American Rescue Plan Act. So,
Is there a motion on it?
I had a question. What period of documents and what percentage of documents are we archiving?
did they get the proposal, Kelly? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's in the
Did I miss
proposal.
it? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's
Land records
D
back to
volumes
1800.
back 573 back to volume 493 mortgage volume. So these are older records. I don't know if you put the dates in there or not,
Oh, I
but
see them now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You
There's
okay?
even pictures from,
yeah, there's even,
pictures of the torn books.
yeah, I know. They're quite disgusting, you know, there is evidence.
That was good, Holly.
Any other
Thank you.
discussion on that? There's a motion on the floor. Is there a
I'll second it.
I'll second it.
Second.
Thank
Okay. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's okay.
All right. Any questions for the county clerk? Otherwise, I will wish you all
Oh,
happy
yeah.
holidays. Oh, yes, sir.
I was just wondering, because our building's filled with old records.
Oh, yeah.
There's grant money out there. I was wondering if you looked at that. or-
So Justin, my records coordinator, is actively looking at local grants again for, it would be for next funding year.
Yes.
I will tell you, there is a huge pile of money because of all the land transfers that have happened over and that's where that money comes from for those grants. The records management grants is from land sales. We have tried, and I believe there's a resolution to kind of, because right now, pretty much any municipality entity and their uncle can apply for this grant money.
Yeah.
But since it comes through clerk offices, we're trying to make it so that we have easier access to it, because writing a grant is historically, I'll say challenging at best. Yeah. It's a real pain and they do not watch.
Administering is worse.
So you're absolutely right with that too. A lot of paperwork, and I don't have a grant writer on staff, but so Justin Weaver, who's my records manager for down at the Inactive Records Center, is researching that now. And just so you do know though, that entity, the Inactive Records Center, were available to town. We've helped other towns as well with your records. I think we helped Stuyvesant with some stuff. I hold some City of Hudson records. So yeah, we can help with that too.
Perfect.
Okay.
Anything else for Holly? Thank you.
All right, awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a nice holiday. Let me know if you need anything. See, told you everything. Thank you. Okay. My next one. I supervise. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Jeremy.
Okay. A resolution, a request to, for the publication of the 2023 Columbia County Travel Guide.
I'll move it.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Any questions?
No, it's a great publication. I'm so happy we're gonna get this exposure. I
Thank
just
you.
read
Nice.
the last issue page to page, cover to cover.
Okay.
Is that good?
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Can you either shut the door or turn off that radio out there? I don't know why then.
Thank you. Retreat?
Okay. Sure.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I have a couple of resolutions before you, but there will be a third one that I need to introduce as well. The first one is authorization to appoint a member to the Climate Smart Communities Task Force. Jennifer Phillips. This came out of the task force. The chairman of the task force nominated her, and it was unanimous from the task force. And would add an additional member to the group.
I'll move it.
Could I just speak on that quickly? You know, we're talking about restructuring the task force a little bit in the future and having rules of order and being able to say, you know, how many members are there and where they come from a little bit more like the EMC. And this person is from Claremont, and I did just speak to Supervisor Stats, who says this is a planning board member in his town and he would support her, but I would like the process in the future to get it more in that direction, you know, so I can support this for now, but I think that we need to continue to look at rules and orders for that task force so that we're better guided as to how many members we have, where they're from, and all that as we've spoken about before.
I think it's a great.
I do know Jennifer personally, and I can support her, but you know, I just think that we want to pay attention to that in the coming year.
And I would just add to that this is not an increase in the membership of the task force. There are 3 members that have never appeared as members. So this is basically replacing one of the 3 that hasn't participated.
And we had
But I agree with you, Bree.
from that area before, so. Yeah.
Exactly.
Do we have a second? Okay.
You have a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Okay, the next is another appointment. This would be to the Environmental Management Council. It's a new member to replace someone who resigned. It's Robert Brush for the town of Taconic.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
And then the last resolution is another appointment. It would be for the County Planning Board. And it's a recommendation that Larry Softlaw continue as representative for the region that represents Livingston, Claremont, and Taconic, and all supervisors are in favor and support it. It just came in
I'll move it.
after.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Any other questions for Patrice?
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi there.
Okay, let me do it. Okay, so my first resolution is in reference to the fact that I can't believe this is going to be their 4th year already. When we had switched back from MVP over to CDPHP as our major medical health insurance provider, the RFP had gone out for a 3-year contract with the ability to extend for 2 one-year extensions. So this would be the first, so actually our 4th year with CDPHP, first of 2 one-year extensions. So we've been very pleased with CDPHP. Certainly no complaints from either any of our staff or our unions. So
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, so number 2 is in reference to, during my point 1 for my annual budget, all summer youth wages go through my office and then through my budget. And then Dawn does this little handy dandy spreadsheet and decides who to move the money out to based on where the assignments for the point 1 went for summer youth. So that's what this would be for.
Move it.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Oh, God, I love this one. Number 3 is in reference to the fact that we had 2 new titles that were created. So certainly it's required by New York State Pension that we post these resolutions to introduce and to develop these 2 new positions and what their standard work days are in New York State Pension.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried.
Okay, and the 4th one is something that, certainly as an HR professional, I find very important. What we would like to do is, I was kind of always, blessed when I was up at the Department of Social Services that we used language line services. I don't know if people, but most people are familiar with it. It's a service that I think most entities use around, but they have accessibility to such a substantial amount of interpreter and video services for individuals that come in and English is not their primary language. So what we would like to do is, when we had the conversation with them, we kind of thought we'd have a county, a county account. And they said, no, we'd rather have it be the building. So they're going to allow us to have one account for 401. There currently already is an account, certainly at DSS and also at mental health and, different ones have it. But this would be to establish a contract for here at 401. And then what we would like to do is, once we get it in place, then they'll set up the separate cost centers for each department, and then we'll do a training. We can educate everyone that if an individual comes in, we'll have a single point of entry to make sure that we can provide the best services for them.
When someone comes in, do we offer the service or do they have to ask for it?
So what happens is when an individual walks in, if English is not their primary language, they're not going to be able to ask or respond. So what's wonderful about this company is they have a laminated form that says, you know, either what are you looking for, or this is my primary language. Excuse me, that's what it says. This is my primary language. And then it's in the top, say, 40 languages that are primarily within the United States, and they can point. So from there, we then use the phone to call a centralized service of which we let them know which one they pointed out, and then we can set up whether it has to be video or audio directly from there. So the only thing we'll fine tune is we certainly don't want that to be happening in the lobby. We did have an individual who spoke Spanish a couple of weeks ago that came in, and that was the only language they could speak. And we were blessed to have someone in here who spoke fluently and was able to find out that they didn't even want our building. They wanted to go to another building. But if that person, say, was coming in and started talking about very confidential case information, could have been someone who maybe was going to the Department of Social Services to talk about a child protective case, whatever. So we want to streamline a procedure where we have a single point of entry for the person to come into the building. You know, my office certainly can do it, and we'd be more than happy to let them establish what they're there for, and then we'll set up some sort of confidential area for them to be able to conduct their business.
I guess the question I was asking is who makes that assessment? Just when they come in and they sign in, does someone assess that they may need help?
Right. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. That's how we want to set up that procedure and the protocol. So when we're providing the training, in my opinion, we should have a centralized person who will have that part for them to be able to point. And then for the services next, whether, you know, we have reception services right here in the main part of the office, they could call us or they could call whoever that single point is to be able to bring that person confidentially somewhere to establish their needs. Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Good question.
I just want really excited that you're doing this, and I've heard a lot of concerns about like people being able to have interpretation services.
Okay.
Less about 401, but maybe some of the other services in the county.
Okay.
So I'm glad to see this is expanding.
So if there are any needs or if things are not being addressed, certainly as the EO officer for the county, we would want to make sure that those needs are met right away.
Okay.
So this I actually put it in place at DSS when I was there like 100 years ago. So Language Line has been in service forever. The hospital uses them. A lot of public entities do. So if we do have any governmental Columbia County offices that are not able to meet, you know, any of the LEP needs, that's certainly under the ADA and under the EO requirements, we want to make sure that we remedy that. So any problems or concerns, please just give me a call and I'll be more than happy to talk with the department head and let them know what's going on and we can get the same opportunity going for them.
Okay. Great. So I'll maybe follow up with you on a couple.
Yeah, that's perfect. No, that would be amazing.
So I'm excited to hear that we're going to have some training as well. Is there like a written policy also that
no
employees to like then follow those?
So the Department of Social Services, we incorporated that entire part of that into the ADA policy that they had.
Right.
So the county's ADA policy only speaks to having the interpreter service. But what we could do is once we get this in, and if we do end up having to go more globally with it, we could incorporate that into a county policy.
Okay.
But I think what would kind of be required is for each separate department or each separate building to kind of take a look at how that would work. So it's much easier at DSS because it's one department and they encompass the whole building.
Right.
Versus here with multiple departments, probably the same at 325, maybe a couple of departments in say 610. We may have to look at how the best system that would work for that building. But we definitely want to make sure that they're all going to be trained and educated on the process.
And how does that work with the ADAs who are out in the town courts?
Mhm.
Is the town providing this translation service, or does the ADA have access remotely to the translation service?
Our town court has a contract.
Yeah,
so is
our.
There we go.
Okay. But does the ADA make use of the town court's contract?
Well,
There was a question about that in my town. That's the reason I'm asking.
Oh, okay.
Well, while they're at court and there's a proceeding going on, we all have Language Line.
Yeah.
So you would incorporate it into the proceeding.
Clerk would.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's a subscription that each town has?
Correct. And
Okay,
it's actually free. They
It
just
is.
charge you for the minutes that you use.
Right.
thank you.
Yeah, they waive, it's through state contract pricing, but like as Kelly said, they waive for municipalities, they waive all those fees. You can look at the contract and see 333 going down, and then they just charge you based on whatever usage you actually use for the minute, and then an additional fee if you have to use video on top of just the phone.
Thank you, because the courts act somewhat independently of the towns, so that's why the town supervisors don't always know how we have access to those
Don't need to,
services.
right?
It's a
It was
very,
offered through Office of Court Administration
oh,
Okay.
and
wonderful.
training and everything quite a few years ago. So if you have a new clerk, she may not be aware of it, or he may not be aware of it.
Thank you.
But it's, yeah.
It's a
Any other
very,
discussion?
So Michael, does that include Board of, the Board of Elections?
they would have their own as well. Right, we would bring them in and they would have their own sub account. So say, for example, it would come, the bill would come to 401, but then it would show that the Board of Elections maybe is 001. So when someone was to walk in and was to be in need of an interpreter service, they would then type in that 3-digit code that is there so that Language Line knows to build those minutes to that account.
But on an election day, is that service?
That service is available 24 hours a day. Yeah.
Because I watched that happen quite a bit.
Oh, okay.
No, that people don't understand, they can't read the ballot.
Gotcha. Okay,
So I
so
don't
thank
know.
you.
That's a
another-
good training piece.
Absolutely. And it'll be instrumental in having them being involved in that
Yeah, I'm curious
process.
how many people walk into 401 and need help.
Yeah. I mean, it just came through kind of through us. I was already
No, I'm
sensitive.
just curious.
Oh, I don't know
You'd
the
be
answer. No.
surprised that there isn't, honestly.
Okay.
The one that we had a couple
Was
weeks
one.
ago was, yeah. So,
Right. But it was certainly enough to think about the example that you're using, certainly for the election and certainly for, I mean, these are very public offices that are here. So you would anticipate that that would be something like that. That would
Maybe we
be,
need a sign out there.
once we get,
Information, come in and ask.
yeah, once we get, like you say,
They
that in
can't read
place,
it.
I think that we could do signage.
it'd be
But-
in multiple languages.
But maybe we
I
could
mean,
offer,
how would you know to come in here and ask for help?
right,
I
for an
mean, I
interpreter.
don't think that's very clear.
So what
in
I think we
reality.
could do too is, so Language Line, our only communication with them so far has just been like, hey, we want to open an account. We can also reach out to them to find out what materials they have. They may already have things that we could post in the windows and things like that to let people be educated to know that we're here for that.
Thank you.
No, that's a problem. Thank you. It was a great question.
I'll move this.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
People have been doing that.
Chris?
Oh my gosh. He's a little flopper.
It's a trick.
Keep it lively, right?
Thank you, thank you.
Okay. Okay, first,
You ready?
yeah, I'm good. First resolution is to authorize our department to re-enter our intermunicipality agreements for shared services. I'll move it. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Second one is to reinstate for 2023 Rick Giuliano for our contractor. He has been very instrumental in helping a lot of projects, and we still have ongoing major projects until we can fill positions that are coming up in 2023. I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
That's a longer contract than the last one.
That's pretty long, yeah.
And Ron, Rick's doing HVAC installations now too.
Yes.
What's that?
Rick's doing HVAC installations now.
Oh, is it?
On a small scale, but.
Yeah.
But we need every HVAC installer.
We need everybody to do it, we can, yeah.
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 Next is to move $25,000 to another budget line so that I can purchase stock workstations, et cetera, or by the end of the year.
So this is just a transfer, not.
Just a transfer, yep. From a grant, right? Nope, this one will be, we have a maintenance agreements line, which we already fulfilled all our maintenance agreements. So I just want to move it to our computer services line or computer supplies line so I can make purchases
Move it.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? So carried.
And lastly is to,
I had a question. That's I was just thinking about. That's all right.
what do you got?
No,
Go away.
Okay.
no, we're good.
All right. And the next request is to authorization for MIS to accept the Department of Homeland Security grant in the amount of $27,990.
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Questions?
Any questions?
Did you have a question, Rick?
Please, I'm here. Okay.
You forgot.
All good?
Rick saw us pick up.
No, I was reading something and then something popped up and then,
I already went that on his phone, then his pen ran out.
My pen ran.
You'll remember it later. Thank you, Chris.
Pen is dead.
Do you have
Phone is
anything?
dead. Mr. Historian?
Have a good night.
Take it easy. John, give it to Matt.
Nice throw.
So I wanted to update you folks on several things. I was before you in the summer, and you were kind enough to provide me some additional funds in order to continue a project that we started, which was to provide some curriculum assistance for the local public schools leading up to the 250th anniversary of the founding of this country. I want to thank you all for your support, and I'm pleased to report that we have draft curriculum for the Germantown Central School District area, the Kinderhook Ichabod Crane Central School District area, the historian from the town of Canaan, working with the historian from the town, the former historian for the town of New Lebanon, had developed their own curriculum ahead of us. They've been, Dodie Gehring is the Canaan historian. She was a school teacher in Chatham Central School. She probably taught Craig.
Yes, she did.
A million years ago. And she has had her own curriculum, and we have updated that. So we are now working towards the Taconic Hills area to accomplish that as well. My next step will be, and I'm going to start with the school district in my backyard, just because those are the first people I worked with, is to give that to them and have them critique it. I'm still editing some of the information that I've been given, and then what that we've developed in the office, myself and Tom Shanahan, who is this historian in Germantown that works in the county historian's office. Then I want to start getting this out during calendar year 2023 with an eye towards having some of this curriculum available to the school districts beginning in the fall of 2023. So that is where we are. And again, thank you for your help, because it wouldn't have been possible without that. So I'll tell you a story. And I know you're all rolling your eyes. So last Thursday morning, I'm sitting in my office, fat, dumb, and happy. My phone starts ringing. My cell phone starts going. I am not a person that spends a lot of time with the nonsense of social media, because that's what I believe it is. And I'd rather work. So I have people calling me up telling me, Bill, the toll house that's located in the town of Greenport, that belongs to the town of Greenport, that's at the west end of the Route 23, which used to be what's called a toll road. It meant as you went down the road, you paid. There is a toll house in Hillsdale, which is the easterly end of it, and there's a toll house in Greenport, the westerly end. There was a report that turned out to be erroneous that the west end toll house was in imminent threat of collapse. So I literally had 10 or 15 phone calls or text messages from people saying, Bill, you must do something about this. And that, so what did I do? So first I called the chairman of the board of supervisors, who said, you got to give me a hand if I need some help. Remember that? and then I called Ray Jerkowski, and I called I talked to the Greenport town engineer, and we determined that the report of the demise of the West End toll house was greatly exaggerated, the imminent demise of that. But it made me start thinking that we have at town level a number of structures that are important historically. And in my experience in working with towns is that you have these structures and some of them have committees associated with it. Some of them have active programs like the town of Stuyvesant has a railroad committee and they have a little railroad station in Stuyvesant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach out to all the town historians and I'm going to ask them to inventory what it is that they have as historic structure. A place like Claremont has a number of historic buildings for by their town hall. Greenport has the toll house. Germantown has a beautiful little Dutch was a parsonage and actually owns this. It has some cemeteries as well. And I want to have that inventoried. And then what I'd like to do is, without any cost to anyone, just solicit information or interest from people who provide grants for these types of structures and encourage the towns and encourage the town historians to identify the needs of these buildings and kind of get them in a program. You know, we have a bridge replacement program. We should have a historic structure maintenance program. And these are buildings that don't necessarily, you know, that come with them a lot of expense. Some are used, some are unused, some just sit there. But I will tell you that it makes up the fabric of Columbia County and we can't neglect it. We need to address it. And I think we need to have a plan for that. So I'm going to do that, working with the historians and come back to you sometime next year and talk about what we can do to try and get ahead of it. My experience with government is sometimes we're good at responsive or being responsive because that's the only role we have sometimes. I think we should be more proactive, especially when it comes to things that have bricks and mortar. So then I wanted to report to you before I tell you about the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. We had a wonderful meeting today, myself and several historians, and Don Meltz and Sherry Franks. And the chairman of the Board of Supervisors has been most generous in providing Sherry Franks to assist the historians. And Don Meltz has done a wonderful job. The historians have gotten together and we have submitted for a map that's now attached to the county's website, a map of historic structures and historic districts throughout Columbia County. It's interactive. You can go use it. It's great. And what we're going to do is we're going to start to develop a map that's associated with the American Revolution in anticipation of increased tourism that's going to come here in the next few years, associated with the 250th anniversary. So I want to tell you that it's without those folks, we wouldn't have the website that we have, and we would not have this map. So I'm very grateful for that because they really have done a magnificent job. And yeah,
Does Greg from Ghent, is he active?
He's all over this. He's very active. And I will tell you, Greg Berninger, historian from the town of Ghent. He teaches at Columbia Green Community College, teaches English, as I recall. And he produces his own videos about historic matters, primarily in Ghent. And if you've ever watched him, you can go on YouTube, or you can go on the site, and he does a great one where, I'm sure most of you know, the village of Chatham is located in two different towns. It's located in the town of Ghent. It's located in the town of Chatham. So he has his tripod, and there's a video of him, and he's talking, and he's standing in the Ghent side, and then he walks over and stands in the Chatham side. It's really quite comical. It's great, but it's just the way he does things is wonderful. And so, yes, he does help.
Is he the source of all those historical markers? There are
Yes.
5 new markers on 66.
I will tell you, he's very prolific about that. That we have had, the last time there was an inventory done, and that's another thing we've talked about, is doing an inventory of all the markers in this county. There are hundreds. And there's a foundation that provides them. And you can have your house or your structure. The inventory was last done approximately 18 years ago, as near as I can tell. I'll tell you who did it. The first intern that the county historian's office ever had, who was my oldest son, Joey. He is now 38. He was 17 then. So that was one of his jobs. So, but I don't believe it's ever been inventoried since. And
How do you get one?
Pardon me?
How do you get
You
one?
apply. I can send you the information.
I can't think it begins with a P, the Pembroke Foundation or Penfield. Oh, it's going to drive me nuts tonight. But you can do that. It's really great. So yeah, you can buy your own. And finally, on October 20th, the Tuesday before Halloween, we had the Legend of Sleepy Hollow down in Claremont. I tried to get in touch with the youth department and I got no response. And I was very disappointed about that because last year the youth department brought down 15 kids approximately in staff. I don't know if something happened. I made several personal phone calls, emails, and got no response. But we had a nice turnout. It was very nice. And I want to thank the facilities department who and the county highway department helped with traffic cones and things like that and cleaning up the site. So, anybody have any question about what I'm doing? Comments?
Bill, I just wanted to follow up with you about an agreement for the smaller town committees to handle the money from the 501c.
Yep.
I had sent you an outline from our Open Space Institute.
Right.
I think I was actually going to take that and try and mock it up and change some things, but I would chat with you to see where we both were. But
we're
I'm happy
ready
to do some work on it, but I don't know where you are.
No, we're ready to do it. In fact, your fellow from one of the board members, I can't think of his name. Richard from Stuyvesant. We're ready to roll to do that. So, we're happy to be of assistance to Stuyvesant. I talked to him about that.
Yep.
And told him
We just needed some guidelines to be able to bring to the committee to satisfy everybody's questions. And
okay, I'll be happy to come down and meet with your railroad committee too.
But I'll work on that document that I had, make some
Okay.
changes, and we'll have something to present to them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Ms. Fitzgerald.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
You too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry for good work. Took him out of the way.
It's important.
We see.
Greg. You go on. Yeah. That's good latest with school.
Oh, this computer. No, I haven't seen that. He wants to for just
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Give you a quick update. We've been really, really busy at the Veterans Office. This new PAC Act that the president signed a few weeks ago has generated 77 new burn pit cases for us and 28 more hypertension Agent Orange cases. They added hypertension after the years we've been pushing the VA to do it. And the VA is really moving fast on those cases. I've already gotten 1,700% back on the burn pits for the Iraqi, Afghan veterans. Additionally, we have 67 cases on Camp Lejeune from Columbia County. We have a group of 25 that have met downstairs in my office, and we have another set up for the first weekend, December. And that's all those are in addition to what we're doing in our normal cases. And we've had 87 since my last report to you, 87 new veterans come out that are applying for different benefits. I think part of it's the economy. A lot of them are veterans that are finally saying, I want to register the VA for healthcare. And we're doing that. Our day room is really active.
Is this the work that Gillibrand has done? Is this her legislation?
Well, she didn't introduce the legislation, but she supported it.
Right.
She was on TV supporting it. Yes, ma'am. And a good thing because we've been fighting that for
I know.
years.
Thank you.
Veterans Day. And the night before, it was busy for us. We welcomed a new veteran into Columbia County, so-called Sergeant York, who is a caisson platoon horse that's retired by the Army up in Chatham. Sergeant York was the black horse that led the caisson with the boots on backwards for President Reagan's funeral. What a beautiful horse. I took 24 veterans up there and we gave them a couple proclamations to the horse on Veterans Day. We have our boots on the ground out at the High and Mighty Horse Farm. I have 11 veterans with post-traumatic stress going out there now. Very successful in that. I had 2 more I registered out there today. We had, I guess it was the night before, I went down to Hills to Copac and escorted a 100-year-old veteran before the town board to get a proclamation in honor of his 100th birthday. That's the 4th veteran that we've honored was 100 years old in Columbia County this year. This guy, I have to tell you a quick story. The supervisor asked me if I'd escort him forward, and I said, of course. I went over and stood behind, and he was a little bit wobbly. He started to get up, and I put my arm on his arm. He said, Sergeant Major, I am fine. You think I'm 100 years old and weak? He said, you can march with me, but you're not going to hold me. Pretty spiffy guy. I have an honor on Thanksgiving. My sister's coming from Massachusetts with a Normandy veteran from World War II, 101. Wow. Drives a car, makes a garden, won't let my sister help him at all. That's part of really exciting part of our job. On the Dwyer program, I can't say enough about it. We have the group of widows now. I have 23 widows in the widows program. They came to me and want to know if they could start a food bank for veterans. And I said, well, we'll go small, but we'll see if it's needed. We have all the downstairs and all the extra room upstairs stacked with food now. So I said to Carol and Joanne on Monday, we're not going to have that many veterans that need food. And what are we going to have all this leftover food? Yesterday, I had 5 veterans show up, loaded their car with food. I had 3 today and 2 more scheduled for tomorrow. So the need is out there. A reporter came the other day and was talking to him. And he said, what can I say about your food bank? And I pointed my finger and I said, let me tell you something. You can put this on the front page of every paper in the county. You tell him that Sergeant Major said this is the most disgusting thing he has to do is provide food bank for a veteran that served our country. And it is. We have to do it, but that's just bugs me. So far this year, we've had 13,000 donations to the Dwyer Fund, unsolicited donations. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with the sheriff, and part of their beard thing this month is they're donating it to our Dwyer Fund downstairs. Our Christmas party for veterans and families and widows is going to be at the Kinderhook Elks on December 3rd. I have 187 veterans registered right now for the Christmas party. Had a real experience, a veteran who died in Chatham, a Navy vet, 2011. And his widow came to me because she now joined our program and said, I wanted to bury my husband at sea. And they said I had to go to California to do it. So she said, what can you do? So I started talking to the Navy, and finally we decided we're going to bury him at sea in the Hudson River. So I called the director at the Slater, and he gave us the Slater for 2 hours on a Saturday morning, beautiful Saturday morning, and we put his ashes into the Hudson. It was really an impressive ceremony. Many of you probably know it. She used to have Carolyn's Restaurant in Chatham on Main Street. Fantastic restaurant. She brings all kinds of goodies to my widows program. I have food baskets coming for Thanksgiving and Christmas to get out to our veterans. And those are the highlights. We're getting a lot of press. You probably see it in the paper, a lot of front page stuff. And we're moving forward.
Great work. Could I ask you to go back to the beginning, some of those numbers you cited? Did you cite those numbers? You said the PACT Act, Agent Orange, and Lejeune. What were those numbers?
Yeah, I have 77 PACT Act for burn pits, 28 hypertension cases for Agent Orange, and 67 Camp Lejeune cases.
Wow. And then in those cases, is it people are looking for medical attention that they haven't gotten yet, or they're
well, my side of it on the PACT Act with the burn pits and with the Agent Orange, that's the side I do with VA compensation. The Lejeune cases, a veteran can get compensation with VA, but they can also participate in a lawsuit. And I've been telling my veterans, because of the experience we have with Agent Orange, don't get involved with these ambulance chasers on TV. So we've taken care of our people locally.
And so, but just to clarify, so they're trying to get both medical attention and financial compensation.
Correct.
Okay. And what is the scale of, for like, is there like a typical scale for like how much medical attention they're getting for like say the burn pits?
Well, they get free medical care, of course, at the VA. Right. But what I'm doing is going in for compensation cases, and I have 5 right now that just got 100% last week for Parkinson's disease. Wow. And some of these people are really sick. I have a veteran up in New Lebanon. I saw him a couple years ago. He was a really huge state trooper. I went up to give a speech the other day and he was sitting in the front row and I didn't recognize it. He looked like something out of a POW camp from Poison Water Camp Lejeune. And I tried to get him put in a case a few years ago and he said, I was a Marine. I suck it up. But now he's really in bad shape. So I got him down to the office and we've got him taken care of.
Harry, you mentioned that you told them not to go with those ambulance chasers. So who's representing them then?
I have an attorney that's coming in from Columbia County.
Great, great.
I want him to have the personal care.
Yep.
We went through a mess with Agent Orange, and I'm not gonna see that happen.
Is it a class action or is
It's
it?
a class action. Yeah.
That would
You
make sense.
probably see ads every 2 seconds on TV.
Oh, yeah.
Come join our law firm. So all my veterans started calling. I said, don't go there. We'll take care of you personally.
Great advice. Glad it's working out.
And I was on a national conference yesterday, and one of the things that came up was we're the only county that's doing that. Everybody else is saying, we don't have time, call the guys on TV.
So
but-
Gary, those numbers you gave us, are those new cases this month or since you last reported?
Well, they're new cases since the PAC Act was signed 6 weeks ago.
Okay. So that's a big number.
And that's in addition to what we've been doing on our normal cases.
Right. Thank you.
It's busy, and thanks to the chairman, I'm going to get a deputy director in January. And I've already selected her. She's a combat vet from Iraq. And her husband's a combat vet from Iraq. They have 3 kids, and I think she's going to be a fireball. She better be for me.
Great. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
I talked to her the other day, and I said, you were in both of you were in combat, the same unit in Fallujah. How'd you meet your husband? She said, we were in a foxhole. Mortars were coming in. And I said, you want to be my boyfriend? He said, I don't have time. She said, now he's my husband.
Yep.
Happy Thanksgiving.
You do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great work.
Slow down.
Can't do that.
We have, one resolution,
For,
real property.
exactly, didn't have it on there.
Huh?
Let me go back into it, sorry.
I can read it.
Go ahead.
Okay. Authorization for the officials designated to approve New York State real property tax law correction of errors of less than $2,500.
Move it.
This is a resolution that we adopt every year. We have a motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Brenda, do you have a question?
No, I'm just voting,
Oh, okay.
voting with my hand.
Wave it.
Thank you.
That too.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Aye.
Aye. Adjourn.